Installations by Katie Weller. Christine Valcasa and Coelia have said that an artistic installation is a technical object that can either be constituted as an object, a thing of the world, or be seized for its constitutive properties. This provides evidence that installation art is usually made from resources and materials that fill up a specific space three-dimensionally to allow for the viewer to experience the work in a different way. By expanding on the concept that photography should consist of images hung on a wall, we are able to explore what photography can truly be. Karen Redrobe and Jean May go on to say, photographs then are more than just pictures, or rather they are pictures of a special sort, ones whose visual reference invites us to a different sort of observation, to ask different questions and think different thoughts. So how can photography become installation art? And how would this give us a different sort of observation? Photography can be seen as a tool used to create a visual experience, a way of creating a connection between the audience and the form of storytelling, whether that be fictional or not. The benefit of installations means the viewer can be a participant in the experience by either interacting with the work or being able to move around it so that the view is shifted, both physically and figuratively. This can also be achieved through the environment that the piece of work is in, as it can become part of the overall context and meaning. For example, an exhibition called Presence was made by Dan Roosegaard. The overall idea behind the work is to use the medium of fluorescent light, and when in control of the audience, they are able to create their own imprint, resulting in a visual picture amongst the environment they are in. This is a form of interactive installation, and in this case, the creation of the visuals is made through the way the audience physically connects with the space. The scale and unique experience draw in visitors while being able to spread the overall message of environmental footprints to those who choose to participate. Roland Barthes stated that this same photograph is not only perceived, received, it is read, connected more or less consciously by the public that consumes it to a traditional stock of signs. This highlights that no matter how the public chooses to engage with the piece of work, there is still a connection formed. As individuals, we all view things in our own way, and just being in the presence of a piece of artwork can create subconscious thoughts and feelings. Installation photography can include elements that target specific senses, meaning that even if the visual is not seen, the piece is still being experienced. In relation to this, Christine Valcasa and Coelia spoke about how an artistic installation is commonly apprehended as a system which, by its arrangement, prescribes an experience for the public who engages in it. This yet again expresses the importance of the experience achieved through installations. The main purpose of experimenting with scale, dimension, and senses is to be able to add depth to a concept. This then creates a whole new layer to the relationship between the viewer and the piece of work, as they feel as though they are looking into an idea rather than just looking at it. There is an experience exhibition called Weird Sensation Feels Good, the world of ASMR, where the audience is presented with a different range of mediums, such as video, images, audio, and physical pieces. All of these collectively demonstrate the art of autonomous sensory meridian response, which can be described as a physical sensation of euphoria or deep calm, sometimes a tingling in the body, triggered through sound, touch, and movement. The exhibition gives the audience freedom to explore their senses in whichever medium they choose, meaning that the viewer decides themselves how they view the work, as well as how much they want to participate. When looking at photography and art installations, the topic of sensory is often referred to, as usually the installations differ from more conventional ways of presenting work. They often involve different medias in order to grab the attention of your senses and the human body reactions. When trying to tell a story or portray a message, exploring ways to include different senses can help to convey what the artist is trying to achieve. Giving the brain distinct references can help to visualize the overall meaning, and combining senses can also create a much stronger narrative. This gives the brain more to reference from, making the overall picture much clearer. Kim Timby states that scientists were constructing knowledge of vision as an experience resulting from collaboration between the eyes and the brain. Despite this being focused on a connection between visuals and the brain, this can also be interpreted for other senses too, For example, the relationship between sound and visual, and how sound can create visuals in our mind without actually having to see them. To demonstrate this, I'm going to play 3 different sounds. I want you to listen and create an image in your mind as to what you see. Once the sound has played, it will play again, but showing the video it came from. This will show that visual images can be created through distinct sounds. What we picture in our mind might be different to what someone else sees, but they should hopefully all be alongside the same context. Did the picture you created in your mind resemble a bird chirping? Or maybe you imagine multiple birds, possibly in a tree, or flying through the sky. Could you see the rain and thunder, or a stormy night perhaps? Did you envision the wind blowing tree leaves around, or rain so heavy a flood was formed? When listening, did you picture a race car, the engine being turned on and revved? The start of a race or a busy road? You might not have envisioned these exactly as they were shown, but hopefully you were able to visualise a sense of what was happening in each. If so, then this proves that we are able to create visuals through using our other senses, especially when being given distinct prompts to guide us. So why does this matter? Well, in terms of photography installations, it means that there are so many more possibilities in what can be created while using a range of mediums. If a visual story can be formed in your mind through sound, smell, touch, or taste, then the photograph can be formed without using any physical visuals. It can be created by the sensual experience created for the viewer to endure. To further back this up, Monica E. McTighe talks about how art writers describe experience as valuable. It is seen as transformative, as invigorating, as something that puts viewers in command of their surroundings and senses. Once again addressing the importance of experience gained by the audience, the mention of senses here gives reasonings as to why these experiences are so engaging and invigorating. The viewer becomes fully engulfed in the piece physically, allowing them to have a much broader thought process when it comes to the contextual meaning. When reflecting on my own creative practice of a piece called A Rosebud Torn from its Stem, the sense of experience and involvement doesn't completely come from being an interactive piece. It mostly comes from the materials used and the way I use them. Through purchasing second-hand dining chairs, I was able to reference the environment of a domestic home. Using fabric allowed the viewer to imagine the touch and feeling and reflect on the contrast against the solid wooden chairs. Initially, I planned to have the chairs in the middle of the room, as I wanted the audience to be able to walk around them, seeing them from all angles. But I was inspired to change that idea to then putting them in front of a wall, which gave connotations of children being lined up. I could have easily photographed these sculptural pieces and then created prints, but the physicality of having the domestic objects in front of the audience lets them look even closer to what's happening. They can see the age of the resources and the texture upon them. It allows them to feel as though they are looking into the piece instead of seeing it from afar. This helped to strengthen the emotional connection I wanted for the audience. With the insight that the context in which an artwork is presented influences the experience and meaning of the work. Vivian Van Sars addresses how the context or specific elements can change the meaning. When thinking about my own piece of work, if it wasn't created as an installation, it might not have had the same effect on the audience, possibly not allowing as much of an emotional connection to be formed, as sometimes seeing something firsthand can have a much larger impact. Another element that I added to the piece was the fabric handouts. They were positioned by my artist statement and there was no indication whether to take one or not. This meant that this choice was up to the viewer. I gave them this choice to either involve themselves in the idea that keeping photographs of people who have passed away is a way to encourage memory and remembrance. Leaving this up to the viewer gave an interactive element to the work, as they had the option to take part of the work home with them, either physically, mentally, both, or neither. Overall, installations are all about experience. They give references to help guide a viewer to the context and meaning behind the work and allow them to fully involve themselves. They often involve the environment in which the work is placed in to be part of the context and attempts to add depth and layers, as well as sometimes featuring sensory elements other than sight to create either a much clearer vision or perhaps a completely different view. The opportunity to explore a range of mediums and resources allows for experimentation and creativity in different forms. The possibilities of what photography can be pushes through the barriers when working with installations, and there are so many more ideas to be created.